The Imaginative Hobbyist presents Batman and the Flash, Thunder and Snow, written by Max Z.S., based on the motion picture Batman Returns, written by Daniel Waters and Wesley Strick. In the fall of 1959, an earthquake struck Gotham City, shaking the streets and taking down structures set on moving towards a brighter tomorrow. The Gotham City Zoo had just opened a few months prior. Hundreds of Gothamites flocked to see the wild animals in their habitats and perform on stage in shows that would astonish their human spectators. Arctic World was a very popular exhibit. Polar bears, seals, and penguins of all shapes and sizes swam and performed tricks that stunned the audience. Christopher Doorball was the chief animal trainer at Arctic World. Before becoming employed by the Gotham City Zoo, he was a performer for the Red Triangle Circus. His acts often involved wild animals, too. Ever since he read The Jungle Book and Tarzan in his youth, he aspired to develop a deep connection with them and teach others about how unique they were. This job was a dream, but unfortunately, it would be short-lived when the earthquake struck the city and tore the zoo apart. Doorball was on a break when it happened. When things began to shake, he headed to Arctic World, but when he fell, he hit the hard concrete and everything went dark. Doorball awoke in a hospital bed 2.5 months after the earthquake occurred back in October. He learned from the doctors that the zoo had been destroyed and had been shut down indefinitely. He asked about the animals. Most of them escaped, but were found and transported to the zoos in Metropolis, Central City, and Star City. The rest, unfortunately, did not survive the earthquake. Although he was getting to 100% in recovery, he had a broken heart. Doorball left the hospital around Christmas. He walked by where the zoo was located, and it was a depressing sight. A once bright and vibrant place had morphed into a bleak and broken world filled with misery. He snuck into the gates and ventured to Arctic World. He heard some squawking noises. The penguins were still alive. He peered through a window to look inside. Most of the birds still looked in surprisingly good shape, considering that in the earthquake, a wall separating it from the city's sewer system broke, merging the two bodies of water. However, some of the emperor penguins appeared rather abnormal. The poor things had been mutated by the chemicals in the water. At the end of the rampway into the water tank floated a tightly closed crib. What in the world could have been inside of it? Certainly not a child, he thought to himself. Unfortunately, that happened to be the case. Doorball had rescued the child and took it to an orphanage, but admission was denied. He went to his old friends at the Red Triangle Circus, who took the child in and raised him as part of their troupe. Doorball would get his old job back, and for a while it looked like the future was to be a bright one. But in time, he would realize he was a fool to ever think so. The Red Triangle Circus saw new management. The new owner, Herschel Miller, wanted to prioritize the abnormalities of certain performers because he believed they drew in the big dollars. Miller did not care who he offended, or if the performers felt their feelings hurt. The dollar bill was what was wanted, no matter how or why. One of their biggest stars was Waylon Jones, whose stage name was Killer Croc. He was a man born with a congenital disability that gave him some of the traits of a crocodile. His shtick was to go on stage and bite into live animals to eat. It never ceased to shock anyone in attendance. Jones was as monstrous as he appeared. He was an abusive bully, and when the circus wasn't performing, he was working as muscle for the mobsters who Miller was in cahoots with. Various performers started leaving the circus, and in their place came people who were equally as talented as who had come before, but were as wicked as Jones and Miller. Doorball was worried about little Jimmy, who was billed to the audience as the Bird Boy. Jones took him under his wing, and as he grew older, the boy began to act very much like his idol. Jimmy performed in front of a large crowd at one show. There was little applause and more gasps and laughter from the audience. One member of the audience tossed some popcorn onto the young man, and in a fit of rage, Jimmy attacked them. Doorball came and stopped the fight. Jimmy pushed him back and stormed off. Later in the day, the police arrived and investigated reports of missing people within the area. The controversy did much damage to the circus, and soon it all shut down. Miller was not heard from again. It was speculated his business associates got too upset with him and had a little talk. Jones, meanwhile, took to robbery and was successful for some weeks, but eventually he was arrested and placed in a prison cell to rot for the rest of his days. Jimmy ran away. Doorbell wondered if he would ever see him again. An answer would arrive years later around Christmas. After walking his dog around the neighborhood, Doorbell turned on his television and saw a news report coming from Gotham City about a strange penguin-like man from the sewers who saved the mayor's child from a crazed clown. He could not take his eyes off of the screen. That was Jimmy, all grown up. Jimmy told his sob story to the press about how he wanted to find his parents and where he came from. The press ran with it and painted him as a heroic figure, but Christopher saw right through the act. Jimmy was playing them all for fools. In the days after, more stories about Jimmy showed up in the paper and on the radio and TV. He had discovered his parents and his real name, Oswald Cobblepot. And then he began running for mayor of Gotham City. With the amount of support, it seemed likely he would have won the recall election. But Batman had released an audio track of Cobblepot expressing how he truly felt about the city and its citizens, and he was out of the race. Cobblepot avoided arrest and escaped the authorities, his whereabouts unknown. Christopher had an idea of where he would be hiding, and knew those crazed circus performers had to be working for him. He tried to reach the Gotham City Police Department, but the lines were busy. Fortunately, Christopher knew of someone who could go to Gotham City in a flash and help the police and the Batman out. His name was Jay. Jay Garrick traveled to Gotham by foot from Keystone City and snuck into the Christmas party of business owner and former Oswald Cobblepot associate Max Schreck. Most likely, Cobblepot would show up at some point and create a panic. Jay fit in pretty well with the rest of the city's elite. He was curious if anyone would ask questions about his winged helmet and if he was inspired by Keystone City's The Streak, but it didn't come up. Cobblepot crashed the party in a giant duck vehicle. Along with him were some penguins with rockets strapped to their backs. He revealed that his troops were out in the city gathering all of the firstborns and taking them to the sewers where a dark fate was waiting for them. Max Schreck took the place of his son Chip, and Cobblepot made his escape in the hole he created in the dance floor. Jay took off and left the building immediately. Outside of the building, Jay spotted Bruce Wayne rushing into his limousine. The car parked itself behind an alleyway. A minute later on the rooftop above one of the buildings, Batman emerged and took out his grapple gun. Jay ran to the rooftop to meet with him and have a conversation. They made a deal. While Batman would handle the Penguin and the Red Triangle Circus, Jay would travel to the authorities and help them alert the citizens of Gotham to stay indoors for the rest of the night, with the doors and windows locked shut. It was a big city, but Jay's fantastic abilities made it easy to send the message out in a short period of time. At the stroke of midnight, Jay headed to meet with Batman at the destroyed Gotham City Zoo. Cobblepot was dead, and so was Schreck. Both met a gruesome fate. Cobblepot fell into the toxic waters with shards of glass from the window he collided with at the top of the Arctic World building. Schreck had been electrocuted by a former employee of his, Selina Kyle, who had made a name for herself lately as Catwoman. With the help of the GCPD, they rounded up all of the remaining members of the Red Triangle Circus and led the dozens of penguins onto trucks to transfer them to active zoos around the area. Jay tried to help Batman find Miss Kyle, but there was no trace of her anywhere. As the sun on Christmas Day rose up from the ground, Jay shook the hands of Batman and returned to Keystone City. He hoped to one day work with Batman again. He thought they made a good team, and he hoped Bruce Wayne would find a bit of happiness coming into the new year.